Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm proud to announce the Wichita Police Department has selected the new blue uniforms, and we will be rolling these out over the next 2 years. So we'll transition into these new uniforms. Folks will be wearing the traditional tan uniform, and then we'll switch completely over to the new blue uniforms by March 31st of 2019. It's been a 1-year process for us to take a very close look at all the uniforms that we have and make decisions about where we want to transition to. The new uniforms are a better fit for the officers. They're better fabric options for the officers. They're better price for the department as a whole. And the selection process that we went through over the past year to identify the new uniforms, the bulk of the committee was patrol officers. So they had a lot of say in where we were going with this process, and ultimately we were able to work with staff and make this final decision. So I want to let you know that we've got a few folks here that are wearing different uniform options that we have. And with these different uniform options, obviously we have long sleeve, short sleeve. Officer Meyer here is wearing the external vest, and that'll be an option that we allow officers to wear. Officer Mackey is also wearing the nylon belt, which also will be a new option that officers will be able to exercise more. And then Officer Schmeidler here is also wearing the new blue uniform. So if you have any questions about our new uniforms, I would like to open it up to the room.
What are you going to do with the old uniforms? I know they have names on them and whatnot. Where are those going to go to?
Well, really, they don't have names on them except for a very, very limited few. The green shirts that we call the light duty uniform will have officers' names on them, but the uniforms the more traditional brown uniforms have name tags. So we've been approached by a couple different agencies that are interested in buying our uniforms, but we haven't worked it out those fine details at this moment because officers will still be wearing those uniforms over the next 2 years. So we don't want to completely divorce ourselves from those uniforms at this time. We still need to allow an opportunity for our folks to wear those during this transition piece. Other questions?
Process like getting these new uniforms, as you mentioned, you got a lot of feedback. Tell me about that feedback.
Well, you know, we started out with pretty much a blank slate. What uniforms are available nationwide, and what are other departments doing? How did they transition? And so the process really started at ground zero. And our initial part was to identify what uniforms officers might be interested in transitioning to. And obviously, when you start looking at those initial pieces, you're looking at color options. One of the great things about the navy blue uniform that we're transitioning to is, and I mentioned this when I opened with my original statement, but let me clarify a little bit, is that officers that are standing in front of you now, as well as myself, we're wearing different uniforms, okay? And what you can see is that they match, okay? And that was one of the things that we were targeting and aiming for, was to allow officers, again, better fit options, female officers, better fit options. The pants and the shirt that I'm wearing right now is a full wool uniform. This will be our Class A uniform for more formal situations with a tie. Obviously, officers could wear it at their discretion if they wanted to, but it would be a more formal uniform. But our current uniform pant doesn't have adjustable waistbands. The new uniform options do. So the old uniform that we had with that we're transitioning away from has a dark vest with a light, generally speaking, has the lighter uniform underneath, and we weren't happy with that look. Plus, it didn't mirror our regular uniform, and we wanted to make sure that things were more quote unquote uniform. So again, we're wearing different uniforms, but we match. And we also took a look at different vendors that were out there and available. And the best way I can kind of encapsulate this is to say some folks might like to wear Nikes, some folks might like to wear Adidas, some folks might like to wear an Under Armour. It's a personal preference. And one of the things that we identified through our process was that we wanted to allow officers to find the uniforms that they were most comfortable in. And again, going with navy blue allows you to select different vendors, have different options, and still have the uniforms match.
Did you find that officers were telling you guys that the uniforms just weren't working or they had problems with it?
Yeah, we've been hearing that for a number of years. And, part of what we had done as an organization was attempt to try and satisfy those questions, those complaints, those concerns. And what happened was, and this didn't happen overnight, this was over a long period of time, that we began to incorporate more uniforms. And when we started to do that, we didn't look the same. One officer would be in a completely different uniform than an officer standing next to him. I remember being on a scene not too long ago, and there were 4 of us standing together, and we were all wearing a different uniform. So this way, again, we can have different fabric options, different fit options, but we still will look extremely similar.
How much is this costing you guys?
Currently, the plan right now is that officers will, and that's why there's the 2-year phase-in. Okay, so officers already have a uniform allowance. It's I've been here for almost 28 years, and it was here before I came here. So it's part of our regular cost of doing business is making sure that officers have new uniforms, new equipment as they move through their years on the department. So we're going to absorb those costs into the regular uniform allowance, so there won't be an additional cost. We are looking and exploring some options to allow some monies to be spent on new uniforms, but at this time, that is our current plan.
Can you tell us your name and your title?
I'm Captain Brian White, Brian, White, just like the color, White.
Who makes the uniforms? They're all the same.
No, and that's kind of what I was mentioning before. But so we have Flying Cross uniforms, and we have SPIWAC uniforms. And again, that's kind of like what I was referring to a moment ago, which is, some officers might like some people might like to wear Nikes, and some people might like to wear Adidas, and they just fit a little bit different. And the way the uniform is built, some of the options within the uniform, there's different pocket configurations. There's different openings within the uniform to run some of the wiring with our body-worn cameras. There's also different fit options for female officers. Some of those pants are built differently from different companies. And as we were going through this process, we found that officers took a liking to specific brands. And what we wanted to do in the end was allow officers to wear those specific brands because they were a better fit for them, and still, again, have a uniform that matched.
You know if so there's just 2 brands?
Those are the 2 brands we went with.
Do you know if those are made in the USA?
I don't know. I know that I'm not sure about that.
Wichita's had the tan for a long time. You know how far back that goes?
About 90 years.
Okay.
About 90 years. Yep. Yeah. As part of this process, I also did a lot of research as to what other departments had done around the country with their uniform change, and what we had done historically here with the Wichita Police Department. So I took a very close look at when we changed, why we changed, and all those moving pieces throughout the years. One thing that we decided that we wanted to historically keep was our shoulder patch. There'll be some mild changes to it because it fit the brown uniform, so there'll be some very mild changes to it, but we wanted it to maintain some historical context with our new uniforms. But when you go way back, and I'm talking pre-1920, we were in blue uniforms back then. So we transitioned from blue to tan, and now we're transitioning back to blue.
And one more thing, as the public starts seeing these uniforms, just your final, I guess, word of advice for people. If they see it, don't be alarmed. These are the truly new uniforms.
Yeah, with a community like ours, we work with other law enforcement agencies, right? So we work with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department and all the surrounding communities, and we work with each other and lean on each other for help. And they come into our community, and we have had no problems with officer identification. In addition to that, the officers that are standing behind me right now have been wearing these uniforms for several months out in the field testing them. And that was part of our overall process, and we haven't had any issues or concerns as it relates to officer identification. So it's not something we're concerned about, something we're aware of, and that's part of why we're here today, is to let folks know that we're making this transition and that this will be our new look. But as far as how it works in the field, we haven't seen any problems.